Shots were still ringing in the air almost when gun control activists seized on the tragic shooting in Las Vegas 2 months ago to raise more money, of course, and to demand new laws. Now they're putting pressure on the state's elected officials. General Laxalt is the Attorney General of the state. Numerous people, including the Clark County District Attorney, are pressuring him to enforce a background check law voters narrowly passed last fall. Laxalt says there's a simple problem with that law. It's completely unenforceable. General Laxalt joins us tonight. Mr. Attorney General, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker. Appreciate it.
So I guess just the macro question, which is, leaving aside the details of the gun control policy, shouldn't we try to figure out why this happened before we propose solutions that might have prevented it?
Well, this is what happens every time, that when there's an incident that involves guns in any way, of course, the political left immediately goes to this issue. And you're right. I mean, there were calls for gun control and calls against me regarding this ballot initiative and enforcement within hours of what happened. And you're absolutely right. We need to figure out what's going on.
So
in these
Paddock went to really a lot of trouble to commit the atrocity he committed and spent a long time doing it and a lot of money. People don't do that for no reason. Do you have any inkling as to what that reason was?
You know, the best way that I kind of try to understand what happened here, is as horrible as this was, is that this is basically a modern-day serial killer. And, you know, once upon a time, you had the streets of London, and someone would go through and kill particular women for weeks at a time. And unfortunately, this is kind of a modern face of a really sick person plotting a way to kill hundreds of people over a long period of time. And you know, unfortunately, he pulled this horrific act off.
He certainly did. So the background check proposal, tell me what's wrong with the background check in this case.
So the Bloomberg Gun Group, they poured in almost $20 million in the state of Nevada in 2016 so that they could get this ballot initiative through. And despite people complaining about the language, it passed, and it passed by less than 1%. The problem was the way they wrote it. They said that only the FBI was allowed to do background checks.
Right.
And we are a point of contact state where Nevada, we do our own background checks. So when push came to shove, this thing passed. Our voters passed it. But the FBI sends a letter saying, well, we're not going to do the background checks, and you can't make us do the background checks. So I was asked for a legal opinion by the governor's agency that does our background checks, says, what do we do with this? And understandably, the right opinion says, hey, without the FBI doing the background checks, there's no way to move forward with the ballot initiative.
So, in effect, this would mean no background checks.
Yeah, on this particular area of private sales for guns, there's no way to move forward. And it's important to know that the way they wrote this was intentional. In our state, if they had sent it to the state, then it would have cost the money. And it would have looked like a tax, and likely it would not have passed if people felt they needed to pay for this particular initiative.
But I guess what I find so confusing is that Stephen Paddock followed existing law. And the laws that gun control advocates have told us for generations would prevent shootings like this did nothing of the sort. I believe he bought all of these firearms legally and underwent background checks. Is that right?
Yeah, as far as we know, he went through all the checks, and he had no history of mental illness that anyone was aware of, no prior felonies. So he went through all the normal hoops and was a lawful gun owner.
Then why are we having the same stupid conversations again and again? I don't understand.
You know, I just think it's pure political grandstanding. People want to be able to score points. They want to be able to go after someone like me. And in this particular case, on the heels of this horrible incident, I received death threats, and my family. I have a 4-year-old and 1-year-old girl, and now all of a sudden we need to worry about protecting my family while we're in the middle of this horrific incident.
I know the feeling well. Mr. Attorney General, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.